My name is Lauren Mitchell. I'm 29 years old, and until 6 months ago, I thought I was living a fairy tale. I had the perfect husband, the perfect home, the perfect life in suburban Chicago. Every morning, my husband Derek would bring me coffee in bed with a kiss on the forehead and tell me he loved me. And every morning for 4 months, that coffee was slowly killing me. I didn't know it then. I thought I was just getting sick. Thought maybe it was stress, or early menopause, or some mysterious illness the doctors couldn't diagnose. I went to specialist after specialist, had test after test, and nobody could tell me why I was wasting away. But I figured it out. And when I did, I made a decision that saved my life and destroyed his. Before I tell you how I caught my husband trying to murder me and how I turned his own plan against him in the most poetic way possible, I need you to do something for me. Hit that like button right now, subscribe to this channel if you haven't already, and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from, because this story is going to take you on a ride you won't believe. Trust me, you're going to want to stick around for every single detail of how I made my husband pay for what he tried to do to me. So get comfortable, because this is the story of how I became a ghost in my own home, and how that ghost came back to haunt the man who tried to kill her. Let me take you back to the beginning, back to when I still believed in happy endings. I met Derek Mitchell 3 years ago at a medical conference in Boston. I'm a pharmaceutical sales rep. He's a cardiologist. Successful, handsome, charming. He had this way of making you feel like you were the only person in the room. When he asked me to dinner that first night, I felt like the luckiest woman alive. We dated for 8 months before he proposed. It was perfect, like everything with Derek always was. A private dinner at the most expensive restaurant in Chicago, a ring that probably cost more than my car, and a proposal that made me cry happy tears. We got married a year later in a ceremony that was featured in Chicago Bride magazine. 300 guests, a dress that cost $15,000, a reception at the Drake Hotel. My parents cried. His parents toasted to our future. Everyone said we were the perfect couple. I believed them. For the first year of our marriage, everything was wonderful. Derek was attentive, romantic, generous. We bought a beautiful Victorian house in Oak Park. He encouraged me to keep working, said he loved that I was independent and successful. He'd bring me coffee in bed every morning before we both headed to our jobs. It was our ritual, our special moment together before the day started. Coffee for my beautiful wife, he'd say, setting the cup on my nightstand with a kiss. I love you more than anything. And I'd smile and tell him I loved him too, and I'd drink that coffee and I'd have no idea that those words were lies. All of it. Every single moment. The sickness started about 14 months into our marriage. It was subtle at first, just feeling tired all the time, a little nauseous in the mornings. I thought maybe I was pregnant. I took 3 tests, all negative. Then came the stomach pain, the headaches, the dizzy spells that would hit me out of nowhere. I'd be in the middle of a client presentation and suddenly the room would spin. I'd have to excuse myself, go to the bathroom, and lean against the sink until it passed. I went to my primary care doctor. She ran blood work. Everything came back normal. She suggested it might be stress. Maybe I should try yoga or meditation. The symptoms got worse. I started losing weight without trying. My hair began falling out in clumps in the shower. My skin took on this grayish pallor that no amount of makeup could hide. I looked like I was dying. Because I was. I went to a gastroenterologist. He did an endoscopy, a colonoscopy, tested me for Crohn's disease, for celiac, for every digestive disorder in the book. Nothing. I went to a neurologist. She did an MRI, tested me for MS, for lupus, for every autoimmune condition she could think of. Nothing. I went to an endocrinologist who tested my thyroid, my adrenal glands, my hormones. Everything was slightly off, but not enough to explain the severity of my symptoms. It's like your body is being poisoned, he said, but we can't find any toxin in your system. If only I had listened to those words more carefully. Derek was so supportive through all of this. He went to every appointment with me, held my hand during every test, researched every possible diagnosis. He'd come home from the hospital after a long shift and make me soup, help me to bed, tuck me in like I was a child. We're going to figure this out, he'd say, stroking my hair. I promise, I'm going to take care of you. And every morning, without fail, he brought me that coffee. Even when I was so sick I could barely sit up, he'd help me drink it. Said the caffeine might give me energy, might help me feel better. It didn't. I felt worse. Every single day, I felt worse. By month 3 of this mystery illness, I had lost 25 pounds. I couldn't work anymore, could barely get out of bed. My company put me on medical leave, told me to focus on getting better. My mother wanted me to come stay with her in Wisconsin. Derek convinced her that I was better off at home, where he could monitor my condition with his medical expertise. I'm a cardiologist, he told her. I know how to take care of her. She needs to be somewhere familiar, somewhere comfortable. Moving her would just add more stress. My mother believed him. Everyone believed him. Why wouldn't they? He was a respected doctor, a devoted husband who was clearly heartbroken watching his young wife deteriorate before his eyes. I believed him too, right up until the day I didn't. It was a Tuesday morning in October, 4 months into my mysterious illness. I was having a particularly bad day, barely conscious, my body racked with pain and nausea. Derek brought me my coffee as always, set it on the nightstand, kissed my forehead. I have to go to the hospital early today, he said. Emergency consult, but I'll be back this afternoon to check on you. Drink your coffee, okay? You need to keep your strength up. I nodded weakly, heard him leave the room, heard his footsteps going down the stairs, heard the front door close. And then I heard something else. A car door, a woman's voice, Derek's voice responding. I forced myself out of bed, every movement agony, and went to the window. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely pull back the curtain. Derek's Mercedes was still in the driveway, and standing next to it, pressed up against my husband, was a woman I'd never seen before. Blonde, young, maybe 25. She was wearing scrubs, and Derek was kissing her. Not a quick peck. A deep, passionate kiss that made my stomach turn for reasons that had nothing to do with my illness. I watched them. Watched him touch her face the way he touched mine. Watched him smile at her the way he smiled at me. Watched him pull out his phone and show her something that made her laugh. Then I heard him say it. Heard it clear as day, even through the closed window. Just a few more weeks. The doctors say she's deteriorating rapidly now. Once she's gone, we can be together openly. We can finally have the life we planned. The woman, I'd learn later her name was Ashley, she was a nurse at his hospital, said something I couldn't quite make out. Derek laughed. No, they still haven't found anything, and they won't. By the time anyone figures it out, if they ever do, it'll be too late. She'll be dead, and I'll be the grieving widower. No one suspects a thing. My legs gave out. I sank to the floor next to the window, my mind racing, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst out of my chest. He was killing me. Derek was poisoning me, and he was doing it so he could be with her. I don't know how long I sat there on the floor. Could have been minutes, could have been an hour. Time didn't mean anything anymore. Nothing meant anything anymore. The man I loved, the man I trusted, the man I thought would be my partner for life, was slowly murdering me, and he was bringing me poisoned coffee every morning with a smile on his face and love in his voice. I heard his car start, watched through the window as he drove away with Ashley in the passenger seat, off to the hospital, off to his life, off to wait for me to die so they could start their future together. When I was sure they were gone, I crawled back to the bed. The coffee was still sitting there on the nightstand, steam still rising from it. I stared at that cup for a long time. 4 months of coffee, 4 months of poison, 4 months of slow, agonizing death. I thought about calling the police, thought about calling my mother, my friends, anyone. But I had no proof. Just an overheard conversation that could be explained away. Just a sick woman with paranoid delusions. That's what Derek would say. That's what everyone would believe. A doctor wouldn't poison his own wife. That's crazy. That's impossible. Except it wasn't impossible. It was happening. And I was the only one who knew. I looked at that coffee cup, and I made a decision. I wasn't going to die. I wasn't going to let Derek win. I was going to beat him at his own game. But first, I needed proof. I got dressed slowly, every movement taking enormous effort. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely button my shirt. But I did it. I had to do it. I took that cup of coffee, poured it into a mason jar I found in the kitchen, sealed it tight. Then I made a fresh pot of coffee and filled the cup again so Derek wouldn't know I hadn't drunk it. I hid the mason jar in the back of my closet, behind shoeboxes and old purses. Then I got back in bed and waited. Derek came home that afternoon like he promised, found me in bed, weak and pale, just like he expected. "Hey, baby," he said, sitting on the edge of the bed. "How are you feeling?" "Terrible," I whispered. It wasn't hard to sound weak. I felt like I was dying. Because I was. "I know, I'm so sorry." He touched my face with such false tenderness it made me want to vomit. "But we're going to figure this out, I promise." Liar, murderer, monster. "Did you drink your coffee this morning?" he asked. "Yes," I lied. "Thank you for making it." He smiled, pleased. "Good girl, you need to keep your strength up." That night, after Derek fell asleep, I went through his things. His phone was password protected, but I knew his code. Watched him enter it 100 times. What I found made me want to scream. Text messages between him and Ashley going back 8 months. Love notes. Sexual messages. Photos I never wanted to see. Plans for their future together. And then I found it. The smoking gun. A text from 3 weeks ago. Got the stuff from the supply closet at work. Nobody noticed. This is really going to work. Ashley's response. Are you sure it won't show up on blood tests? Derek. Positive. Arsenic in small doses mimics so many other conditions. By the time anyone thinks to test for it specifically, the damage will be too severe to reverse. She'll be dead within months, and everyone will think it was some rare disease. Ashley. I love you. I can't wait to be Mrs. Mitchell. Derek. Soon, baby, soon. I took screenshots of everything, sent them to my personal email, backed them up to the cloud. I wasn't taking any chances. Then I kept digging, found receipts for arsenic trioxide purchased from a chemical supply company using a fake name, found research articles he'd downloaded about undetectable poisons, found a journal where he'd documented my deterioration like I was some kind of experiment. Day 45, Lauren experiencing severe nausea and fatigue, hair loss beginning, proceeding as planned. Day 67, significant weight loss, went to third specialist today, still no diagnosis, perfect. Day 89, Lauren barely able to get out of bed, doctors discussing hospitalization, need to slow down dosage slightly to avoid suspicion. I read every word of that journal with tears streaming down my face. Every entry was clinical, detached, like I wasn't his wife, like I was just an obstacle to remove. The last entry was from 2 days ago. Day 112, Lauren's condition critical. Estimate 2 to 3 more weeks at current dosage. Have started making funeral arrangements. Ashley asking about timeline. Soon. I carefully put everything back exactly as I found it. Derek couldn't know I'd discovered his plan. Not yet. The next morning, he brought me coffee as usual, kissed my forehead as usual, told me he loved me as usual. I waited until he left the room. Then I poured the coffee into another mason jar, filled the cup with coffee from the pot downstairs, drank it in front of him when he came back to say goodbye. That's my girl, he said, pleased. I'll see you tonight. I did this every morning for a week, saved every cup of poison coffee, kept drinking the clean coffee from downstairs. And slowly, very slowly, I started to feel better. The headaches eased, the nausea subsided. My energy started coming back. Color returned to my face. Derek noticed. You look better today, he said one morning, frowning slightly. I feel a little better, I said carefully. Maybe whatever this is, it's finally passing. He didn't look happy about that. Well, don't push yourself too hard. You're still very sick. You need to rest. That night, I checked his phone again, found a text to Ashley. She's improving. Might need to increase dosage. Can't risk her recovering now. The next morning, the coffee he brought me was darker than usual. More bitter smelling. He'd increased the poison, just like he said he would. I saved that cup too. And I made a decision. It was time to turn his plan against him. I had 7 jars of poisoned coffee hidden in my closet. 7 jars of evidence. But more than that, I had 7 jars of the weapon Derek had been using against me. If he wanted to play with poison, I could play too. It took me 3 days to work up the courage. 3 days of planning, of thinking through every possible outcome, of making sure I had everything I needed. On day 4, I was ready. Derek's routine was predictable. Every morning at 6, his alarm went off. He'd get up, shower, then come downstairs while I was supposedly still sleeping. He'd make his coffee first, leave it on the counter while he made mine, then bring mine upstairs. That morning, I got up at 5:30, crept downstairs in the dark. I took one of the jars of poisoned coffee from my closet and went to the kitchen. I made a fresh pot of coffee, made it exactly the way Derek liked it. Strong, black, no sugar. Then I poured some of the poisoned coffee into his favorite mug, the one that said world's best, husband. The irony wasn't lost on me. I put his mug in its usual spot on the counter, made a second cup with clean coffee and put it next to his. Then I crept back upstairs and got in bed. At 6 o'clock, Derek's alarm went off. I listened to him shower, listened to him come downstairs, listened to him moving around in the kitchen. My heart was pounding so hard I thought he'd hear it from downstairs. What if he noticed something wrong with the coffee? What if he realized what I'd done? What if this backfired and made everything worse? But then I heard it. The clink of a mug. the sound of him drinking. He was drinking the poisoned coffee, my poison coffee, the coffee he'd been giving me for months. I waited until I heard him leave for the hospital. Then I got up and went downstairs. His mug was empty in the sink. He'd drunk the whole thing. I poured it out, washed it carefully, and put it away. No evidence. Nothing to suggest anything had happened. Then I made myself breakfast for the first time in months. Ate eggs and toast and fruit, felt my strength returning with every bite of food that wasn't laced with poison. And I waited. Derek came home that afternoon looking pale. "I feel terrible," he said. "Must have caught something at the hospital. I'm going to lie down for a bit." I brought him water, tucked him into bed, asked if he needed anything. "No, I just need to rest," he said. "This came on so suddenly, I feel like I've been hit by a truck." "That's too bad," I said sweetly. "Maybe you're just tired. You've been working so hard taking care of me, you need to rest." I did this every morning for 2 weeks, switched our coffee cups while he showered, gave him the poison he'd been giving me, watched him get sicker and sicker. He lost weight, his skin turned gray, he couldn't keep food down. He had headaches, dizzy spells, body aches that left him bedridden, and the whole time I played the devoted wife, brought him soup, helped him to the bathroom, told him we'd figure out what was wrong. "It's so strange," I said one day as I sat beside his bed. "Your symptoms are almost exactly like mine were. Do you think we have the same thing? Some kind of environmental toxin in the house, maybe?" His eyes widened slightly. I could see the wheels turning in his mind, could see him starting to suspect. "Maybe," he said weakly. "Maybe we should have the house tested." "Good idea," I said. "I'll call someone tomorrow." I didn't call anyone, but Derek didn't know that. He was too sick to follow up, too sick to do anything but lie in bed and experience exactly what he'd put me through. Meanwhile, I kept getting stronger, stopped drinking the coffee he made entirely, made my own every morning from the clean pot downstairs. My hair stopped falling out. My color came back. I gained back some of the weight I'd lost. Derek was too sick to notice, or maybe he did notice and couldn't figure out why his plan was backfiring so spectacularly. Ashley noticed, though. She started texting him, worried messages, asking why he wasn't responding, why he kept canceling their lunch dates. "I'm sick," he texted back one day. I watched him type it. "Don't know what's wrong. Might need to go to the hospital." "OMG, should I come over?" Ashley wrote back. "No," Derek responded quickly. "Lauren's home. Can't risk it. I'll let you know when I'm better." But he didn't get better. He got worse. By week 3, he was as sick as I had been at my worst. Could barely get out of bed. Could barely keep anything down. His colleagues at the hospital were concerned. Started suggesting he come in for tests. Derek refused. Said he just needed rest. That it would pass. He knew. Deep down, he knew what was happening. He just couldn't admit it. Couldn't admit that his own wife had figured out his plan and turned it against him. On day 25 of my coffee switcheroo, Derek was so sick he couldn't get out of bed. I called his mother, told her he needed someone to come take care of him. She came immediately, took one look at her son, and started crying. "Oh my God, Derek, you look terrible. We need to get you to the hospital." "No," Derek said weakly. "I'm fine. Just the flu." "This is not the flu," his mother said. "Lauren, help me get him up. We're taking him to the emergency room." We got him to the ER. They admitted him immediately, ran every test you can imagine. And finally, after days of testing, they found it. Arsenic poisoning. The doctors were baffled. How had a cardiologist been exposed to arsenic? It didn't make sense. I watched Derek's face when they told him, watched the fear and confusion and dawning horror as he realized what had happened. He looked at me, really looked at me, and I smiled. A small, knowing smile that told him everything he needed to know. I knew what he'd done to me, and I'd done it right back to him. His face went white. "Lauren," he whispered, what did you do?" "What did I do?" I said innocently. "I don't know what you mean. I've just been taking care of you, bringing you coffee every morning, just like you did for me." His eyes widened. Understanding crashed over him like a wave. "You," he breathed. "You switched the coffee." "I don't know what you're talking about," I said. Then I leaned in close enough that only he could hear. But hypothetically, if someone had been poisoning their wife for months and that wife figured it out, it would be poetic justice if she turned the tables, wouldn't it? Eye for an eye. Coffee for coffee. Before Derek could respond, I stood up and walked out of his hospital room, walked straight to the nurse's station, where his mother was talking to the attending physician. "Excuse me," I said. I need to report something. I think my husband may have been poisoning himself." Everyone turned to look at me. "What?" Derek's mother said. "Lauren, what are you talking about?" "I found some things at home," I said. "Text messages, receipts, a journal. I think Derek was trying to poison me and somehow he ended up poisoning himself instead. Maybe he got confused about which coffee cup was which." I pulled out my phone, showed them the screenshots I'd taken weeks ago, the text messages between Derek and Ashley, the receipts for arsenic, the journal documenting my decline. The doctor's face went pale as he read through everything. "Oh my God." Derek's mother started crying. "No, no, my son wouldn't. He couldn't. There has to be some mistake." "There's no mistake," I said quietly. "He tried to kill me, and I have 7 jars of poisoned coffee hidden at home to prove it. He's been giving it to me every morning for months. That's why I was so sick. That's why the doctors couldn't figure out what was wrong with me." "But why is Derek sick?" the doctor asked. I shrugged. "I don't know. Maybe karma. Maybe he accidentally drank the wrong cup. Maybe God has a sense of justice after all." The police were called. They went to my house with a warrant, found the 7 mason jars of poisoned coffee in my closet, tested them, confirmed they were laced with arsenic. They also found Derek's journal, his text messages, all the evidence of his plan to murder me. But they couldn't find any evidence that I had poisoned him. Because I hadn't technically. I'd just given him back his own poison, used his own coffee, his own plan. When they interviewed me, I told them the truth. Well, most of the truth. I figured out he was poisoning me about 3 weeks ago. I stopped drinking the coffee he gave me and started getting better. I don't know how he ended up poisoned. Maybe he got confused. Maybe Ashley poisoned him. I really don't know. They interviewed Ashley too. She cracked immediately, admitted to the affair, admitted she knew about the poison, admitted she helped him plan it, but she swore she hadn't poisoned Derek herself. Said she thought maybe I had done it, which technically I had, but they couldn't prove it, because I'd used his own poison, his own method. I hadn't bought arsenic or planned anything. I'd just turned his weapon against him. The prosecutor struggled with my case. Was it self-defense? Was it vigilante justice? Was it attempted murder? In the end, they decided not to charge me with anything, said I had been acting to save my own life, that I had every right to defend myself against a husband who was actively trying to kill me. Derek wasn't so lucky. He was charged with attempted murder, conspiracy to commit murder, and a dozen other felonies. Ashley was charged as an accomplice. They both went to trial. I testified at both, told the jury everything, the sickness, the doctors, the overheard conversation, the texts, the journal, the mason jars of poisoned coffee. The defense tried to claim I had poisoned Derek, that I was the real criminal, but they couldn't make it stick. Because even if I had given him poisoned coffee, it was coffee he had made, poison he had bought, a plan he had executed. I had just turned it around on him. The jury deliberated for 3 hours, came back with guilty verdicts on all counts. Derek was sentenced to 25 years in prison. Ashley got 10 years as an accomplice. The judge looked at Derek before he was led away and said, "You took an oath as a doctor to do no harm. You took vows as a husband to love and cherish your wife. Instead, you slowly poisoned the woman who loved you, trusted you, and built a life with you. You're a disgrace to your profession and to humanity. I hope you spend every day of your sentence thinking about what you've done." Derek looked at me as they led him away. I met his eyes, didn't look away, wanted him to see that I wasn't afraid anymore, that I had won. He tried to kill me, but I killed his plan instead. And now he'd spend the next 2.5 decades behind bars thinking about the woman who outsmarted him. That was 6 months ago. I'm sitting in my living room now, in the house I got in the divorce, drinking coffee I made myself. Real coffee, clean coffee, coffee that won't kill me. I sold Derek's practice, his car, everything he owned, used the money to pay off our house, to start a foundation for victims of domestic violence, and to build a new life. The doctors say I'll make a full recovery. My hair is growing back. I've gained back the weight. I'm healthy again. Sometimes people ask me if I feel guilty. If I regret poisoning my husband the way he poisoned me, I don't. He tried to murder me slowly, painfully, while making me think he loved me. He was going to let me die, collect my life insurance, and build a life with his mistress on my grave. I just gave him a taste of his own medicine, literally. And honestly, watching him realize what was happening, watching the fear in his eyes when he understood that I knew that I'd turned his plan against him, that was better than any revenge I could have planned. He wanted to kill me with coffee. Instead, his coffee is what destroyed his life. Some people might say what I did was wrong, that I should have just gone to the police immediately, that I should have taken the high road. But those people haven't been slowly poisoned by someone they loved. They haven't felt their body failing while doctors shrugged and said they couldn't find anything wrong. They haven't overheard their husband planning their funeral with his mistress. I did what I had to do to survive, and I'd do it again in a heartbeat. Derek wanted me dead. But I'm alive. I'm healthy. I'm free. And he's in prison where he belongs. That's justice. That's karma. That's what happens when you try to kill someone and they turn out to be smarter than you thought. Every morning now, I make my own coffee. Strong, black, exactly how I like it. And I smile, because I'm alive to drink it. And Derek, he's probably drinking prison coffee right now, wondering every single day if someone's poisoning it the way he poisoned mine. Paranoia is a terrible thing, isn't it? Especially when you brought it on yourself. If you made it to the end of this story, thank you for listening. Thank you for being here while I told you about the worst time of my life and how I survived it. Hit that like button if you think Derek got what he deserved. Subscribe to this channel if you want to hear more stories of people who fought back against those who tried to destroy them. And leave a comment telling me your thoughts. Do you think I was justified? Would you have done the same thing? I want to know. And to anyone out there who's going through something similar, who suspects their partner might be hurting them, trust your instincts, pay attention, document everything, don't let love blind you to the truth. I almost died because I trusted the wrong person. Don't make the same mistake. My name is Lauren Mitchell. 6 months ago, my husband tried to kill me with poison coffee. I switched our cups, and I'm alive to tell you about it. He's not dead, but his old life is, and that's enough for me. The day Derek was sentenced, I walked out of that courthouse and took my first deep breath in over a year. A breath that didn't hurt. A breath that felt like freedom. My mother was waiting for me on the courthouse steps. She grabbed me and held me so tight I thought my ribs might crack, but I didn't care. I just held her back and let myself cry. Really cry. Not the silent tears I'd shed in that hospital bed, or the angry tears when I'd discovered the truth. These were tears of relief, of survival, of knowing that the nightmare was finally truly over. "It's done," I whispered into her shoulder. "Mom, it's really done." She pulled back and looked at me with tears streaming down her face. "I'm so sorry, baby. I'm so sorry I didn't see what he was doing to you. I should have known. I should have protected you." "You couldn't have known," I said. "I didn't even know. He fooled everyone. That's what narcissists do. That's what murderers do." We stood there on those steps for a long time, watching Derek's mother and sister leave through a side door. His mother looked broken, aged 10 years in the past 6 months. Part of me felt bad for her. She'd lost her son, not to death, but to something worse, to the revelation that the man she raised was a monster. She looked at me as she passed. Just one long look. I couldn't read her expression. Anger, grief, understanding, maybe all three. I never saw her again after that day. The media circus that followed the trial was intense. "Dr. Poison's wife gets poisoned himself," was the headline on every news site, every tabloid, every morning show. I became a minor celebrity, the woman who outsmarted her murderous husband. I didn't want the attention, didn't want to be known as the poisoned wife or the vengeful spouse or whatever label they wanted to put on me. I just wanted to move on with my life. But the story had legs, as they say in journalism. People were fascinated by it. How could a doctor, someone sworn to save lives, try to kill his own wife? And how had she figured it out and turned the tables so perfectly? I gave exactly one interview to a local journalist who had covered the trial fairly. I told her everything, the whole story from beginning to end. How I'd felt during those months of sickness, the terror when I realized what Derek was doing, the cold calculation it took to switch those coffee cups day after day. "Do you regret it?" she asked me, "giving him his own poison?" I thought about that question for a long time before I answered. "No," I finally said. "I don't regret saving my own life, but I regret that it had to happen at all. I regret that the man I loved turned out to be someone who could look me in the eye every morning while slowly killing me. I regret the 4 months of my life I spent dying. I regret that I'll never be able to trust someone the way I trusted him again. But do I regret fighting back? Never." The interview went viral. Millions of views, thousands of comments. Most people supported me, said I was brave, said Derek got what he deserved. But there were critics, too. People who said I should have gone to the police immediately. People who said I was just as bad as Derek for poisoning him back. People who said I was lying, that the whole thing was made up for attention. I stopped reading the comments after the first day. Other people's opinions didn't matter. I knew the truth. I knew what I'd survived. And that was enough. The divorce was finalized 3 months after Derek's sentencing. It was the fastest divorce in Illinois history, my lawyer joked. When one spouse is convicted of trying to murder the other, there's not much to argue about in court. I got everything. The house, the cars, Derek's retirement accounts, his investments, all of it. His lawyer tried to argue that Derek should keep some assets for when he got out of prison in 25 years, but the judge shut that down fast. Your client tried to murder his wife for financial gain, the judge said. He doesn't get to profit from his crimes. Mrs. Mitchell gets everything, and he's lucky he's not facing the death penalty. I sold most of it. Didn't want Derek's money or his things. Didn't want any reminders of the life we'd built together. The life that turned out to be a lie. I kept the house, though. My lawyer thought I was crazy. Too many bad memories, she said. You should sell it and start fresh somewhere new. But I didn't want to run away. This was my house. I'd picked out the paint colors, planted the garden, made a home here. Derek didn't get to take that from me, too. So I stayed, gutted the master bedroom, and completely redecorated. Bought all new furniture, made it mine again. The kitchen got a complete overhaul, too. New cabinets, new appliances, new everything. I threw away every coffee cup, every mug, every piece of dishware that Derek had ever touched. Started completely fresh. And I bought a new coffee maker, a fancy one with all the bells and whistles. Every morning I make my own coffee now. Always my own coffee. I'll never let anyone else make it for me again. Not because I'm paranoid, but because I've learned that trust has to be earned, not given freely. Ashley's family reached out to me about 2 months after the trial. Her mother called me, crying, apologizing for what her daughter had done. I didn't raise her to be like this, she sobbed. I don't know what happened to her. She was such a good girl. I don't understand how she could help plan something so evil. I felt bad for her. She was another victim of Derek's manipulation, in a way. Her daughter was in prison because she'd fallen for a married man who turned out to be a murderer. Ashley made her own choices, I told her gently. She knew he was married. She knew he was poisoning me. She could have stopped it at any time. She could have called the police or warned me or done something, but she didn't. She helped him, and now she has to live with those consequences. Ashley's mother asked if I would ever forgive her daughter. I told her the truth. I don't know. Maybe someday, but not now. Right now, I'm just trying to heal from what she helped do to me. We never spoke again after that call, but Ashley herself wrote me letters from prison, dozens of them. At first, I threw them away without reading them. Didn't want to hear her excuses or her apologies or whatever she thought would make this okay. But curiosity got the better of me eventually. I opened one of her letters. It was 6 pages long, filled with apologies and explanations and regrets. She talked about how Derek had pursued her, how he'd told her I was cold and distant and didn't love him anymore, how he'd said we were getting divorced anyway, that he just needed to wait for the right time. She said she didn't know about the poison at first, that Derek told her I was just sick, that it was unfortunate timing, but not his fault. It wasn't until 2 months in that he told her the truth, that he'd been poisoning me, that he needed me dead to get the life insurance and move on with her. I should have left him right then, she wrote. I should have called the police, I should have warned you, but I was in love with him, or at least I thought I was. Now I realize he was just using me, just like he was using you. We were both his victims. I crumpled up that letter and threw it away. She wasn't a victim. She was an accomplice. There's a difference. But her words stuck with me, because they made me realize something important. Derek hadn't just tried to kill me. He'd manipulated multiple people, used them, destroyed their lives too. Ashley's life was ruined. His mother's heart was broken. His colleagues' trust in the medical profession was shattered. One man's evil had rippled out and damaged so many people. I started going to therapy about 4 months after the trial ended. My mother had been suggesting it for a while, but I'd resisted. Thought I could handle it on my own. Thought I was strong enough to just move on. I wasn't. The nightmares started. Every night I'd dream about Derek standing over me with a coffee cup, smiling. Sometimes in the dreams I couldn't move, couldn't scream, could only watch as he poured poison down my throat. I'd wake up gasping, sweating, checking to make sure I was alone in my bed. The panic attacks came next. I'd be in the grocery store or at the mall and suddenly my heart would start racing, my vision would blur, and I'd feel like I was dying all over again. Like the poison was still in my system, still killing me slowly. My therapist, Dr. Sarah Chen, was a godsend. She specialized in trauma and PTSD. She never judged me for what I'd done, never made me feel like I was wrong for fighting back. You survived, she told me in our first session. That's what matters. You recognized the threat and you eliminated it using the tools you had available. That's not revenge. That's self-preservation. Over the months, she helped me work through the trauma, the betrayal, the guilt I felt, even though I knew I shouldn't feel guilty, the anger that still burned in my chest like a fire I couldn't put out. It's okay to be angry, Dr. Chen said. What Derek did to you was unforgivable. You're allowed to hate him. You're allowed to be furious, but you can't let that anger consume your whole life. You have to find a way to channel it into something productive. That's how the foundation started. I'd gotten almost $2 million from selling Derek's assets. I didn't need all that money, didn't want it. It felt tainted, like blood money. So I used it to start the Lauren Mitchell Foundation for victims of domestic violence. We focus specifically on cases where the abuse is hidden, where the victim doesn't even realize what's happening to them. Medical abuse, financial abuse, psychological manipulation. We offer free legal services, free counseling, free medical testing for victims who suspect they're being poisoned or drugged. We work with law enforcement to recognize the signs of slow-acting poisoning. We train doctors and nurses to look for patterns that might indicate intentional harm from a partner. If my suffering could help even one person avoid what I went through, it would be worth it. The foundation took off faster than I ever expected. Donations poured in from all over the country, people who had been through similar situations, people who had lost loved ones to domestic violence, people who just wanted to help. We helped our first client about 3 months after we opened. A woman named Maria, whose husband was a pharmacist. She'd been getting sicker and sicker, just like I had. Couldn't figure out what was wrong. Our foundation paid for comprehensive toxicology testing that her insurance wouldn't cover. They found benzodiazepines in her system. Her husband had been crushing up sedatives and putting them in her food, slowly making her more and more dependent on him, more forgetful, more confused. He was setting up a case to have her declared mentally incompetent so he could control her inheritance from her recently deceased father. We helped her get to safety, helped her file charges, helped her get her life back. She sent me a card after her husband was arrested. It just said, "Thank you for saving my life. You're my hero." I cried when I read that card. Cried because I knew exactly how she felt. Knew exactly what it was like to be slowly destroyed by someone who claimed to love you. That's when I realized my trauma had a purpose. My suffering wasn't meaningless. It had led me here, to this work, to helping other people survive what I'd survived. I started speaking at events, conferences on domestic violence, medical conventions about patient safety, law enforcement trainings on recognizing hidden abuse. At first, I was terrified, didn't want to relive my story over and over, didn't want to be defined by what Derek had done to me. But every time I spoke, women would come up to me afterward with tears in their eyes. They'd tell me their stories, how their partner controlled their medication, how they felt sick all the time, but doctors couldn't find anything wrong, how they suspected something was off but were afraid to trust their instincts. And I'd help them, connect them with resources, give them the foundation's number, tell them they weren't crazy, they weren't paranoid, and if their gut was telling them something was wrong, they needed to listen to it. I saved lives. Me. The woman who almost died in her own bed while her husband smiled and brought her poisoned coffee. I was saving lives now. Derek wrote me letters too. From prison. I threw away the first dozen without reading them. Didn't want to hear his excuses, didn't want his apologies. But eventually, curiosity won again. I opened one of his letters. It was dated about 8 months into his sentence. "Lauren, I know you probably won't read this. I know you hate me. You have every right to. What I did to you was unforgivable. I've had a lot of time to think in here, and I still don't fully understand why I did it. Greed, fear of divorce, stupidity, all of the above. I was stupid enough to think I could get away with it. Stupid enough to think you'd never figure it out. You were always smarter than I gave you credit for. I underestimated you. That was my biggest mistake. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I just want you to know that I think about what I did every single day. I think about the pain I caused you, the fear, the betrayal. I think about how I threw away something real for something that was never going to last with Ashley. I hope you're doing well. I hope you've moved on. I hope you've found happiness. You deserve it. You always deserved better than me. Derek." I read that letter 3 times, looking for some sign of real remorse, some indication that he truly understood the gravity of what he'd done. I couldn't find it. The letter was self-pitying. It was about his regret, his pain, his realization, not about me, not about what he'd stolen from me. I wrote him back, just once. I wanted him to know exactly how I felt. "Derek, you're right. I'll never forgive you. Not because I'm holding a grudge, but because what you did is unforgivable. You didn't just try to kill me. You betrayed every promise you ever made. You made me doubt my own sanity. You stole 4 months of my life and nearly stole the rest of it. You want to know what I think about? I think about how every morning for 4 months you looked me in the eye and told me you loved me while handing me poison. I think about how you documented my decline like I was a lab experiment. I think about how you kissed me goodbye and went to meet your mistress while I was too sick to get out of bed. I think about how you planned my funeral while I was still alive. And then I think about the morning I switched our coffee cups for the first time. The terror I felt that you'd notice. The grim satisfaction when you drank it down without hesitation. The cold calculation it took to do it again and again and again. I became someone I didn't recognize because of you. I became someone capable of poisoning another human being. That's what you did to me. You turned me into someone who could do what you did. I don't regret it. I'd do it again. But I hate that you put me in that position. I hate that you made me choose between my life and my morals. You're going to spend the next 25 years in prison. That seems like a long time to you now. But it's not long enough. It will never be long enough for what you tried to take from me. I'm going to spend those 25 years living, really living. I'm going to help other people survive what I survived. I'm going to make sure your crime had meaning, that my suffering had purpose. And when you get out, if you get out, I'll be 54 years old. I'll have spent a quarter century building a life that has nothing to do with you. You'll just be a bad memory, a cautionary tale, the husband who tried to kill his wife and ended up in prison instead. That's your legacy, Derek. Not your medical career, not your charming smile or your expensive suits. Just this. A man who tried to commit the perfect murder and failed. I hope every day of your sentence is long and hard and full of regret. Not because I want you to suffer, though I won't pretend that doesn't give me some satisfaction, but because I want you to have time to truly understand what you destroyed. Don't write to me again. We have nothing more to say to each other. Lauren. I sent that letter and felt a weight lift off my shoulders. That was my closure, my final word to the man who almost killed me. After that, I threw away any letters he sent without reading them. He was in my past now, and that's where he was going to stay. Life slowly returned to normal, or at least a new version of normal. I went back to work about a year after the trial. My company had been incredibly supportive, kept my job open, even promoted me to a regional management position. I threw myself into work and the foundation, kept busy, kept moving forward, tried not to dwell on what I'd lost or what might have been if Derek had been who I thought he was. I started dating again about 18 months post-trial. Nothing serious at first, just coffee dates and casual dinners, testing the waters, seeing if I could trust anyone again. It was harder than I expected. Every time a man offered to buy me a drink or make me dinner, I felt panic rising in my chest. What if he was like Derek? What if everyone was like Derek? How could I ever trust anyone with my life again? Dr. Chen helped me work through those fears. Not everyone is a murderer, she reminded me gently. Derek was an aberration, a sociopath who hid behind a charming facade. Most people are good. Most people won't hurt you. But some will, I said. And I can't tell the difference anymore. Derek seemed perfect. He seemed safe. How do I know who's real? You trust your instincts, she said. And you pay attention. You watch for red flags. You don't ignore warning signs because you want to believe in love. You protect yourself first and open your heart second. That became my new philosophy. Protect first, trust second. I dated a few men. Nice guys. Normal guys. But I couldn't commit to any of them. Couldn't get past the fear that they might be hiding something. That they might be like Derek underneath their nice guy exteriors. Until I met James. I met him at a foundation fundraiser about 2 years after Derek's conviction. He was a detective with the Chicago PD, specializing in domestic violence cases. He'd heard about my story and wanted to learn more about hidden abuse patterns. We talked for hours that night, about his work, about mine, about the cases that haunted us, about the victims we couldn't save. I read about what happened to you, he said carefully. What you did. The way you fought back. Can I ask you something? I tensed, expecting judgment. Sure. Do you ever regret not going to the police first, before you started switching the coffee cups? I thought about that, really thought about it. Sometimes, I admitted. Sometimes I wonder if there was another way, a better way. But honestly, I don't think the police would have believed me. One overheard conversation and some text messages that could be explained away. They would have told me to keep documenting and come back when I had more evidence. And by then, I would have been dead. James nodded slowly. You're probably right. We're not trained to look for slow-acting poisoning. We look for bruises, broken bones, obvious violence. A doctor poisoning his wife with morning coffee? That doesn't fit the pattern we're taught to recognize. You did what you had to do to survive. That conversation was the first time someone in law enforcement had validated my actions without judgment, had understood why I did what I did. We started seeing each other regularly after that, just as colleagues at first, comparing notes on cases, sharing resources between the foundation and his department, but it evolved into something more. James was patient with me, understood my fear of trust, never pushed me to move faster than I was ready for. When I had a panic attack at a restaurant because the waiter brought me a drink I didn't order, James calmly explained that I'd ordered it 5 minutes earlier and had just forgotten. "You're safe, he said quietly. "I promise. You're safe." And slowly, very slowly, I started to believe him. We've been together for 6 months now. I'm not ready to get married again. Might never be ready for that. But I'm happy. Happier than I ever thought I'd be after everything I went through. James knows all my triggers, knows I make my own coffee every morning, knows I sometimes have nightmares and need to be gently woken up, knows that certain phrases or situations can send me spiraling back to those 4 months of hell. He's patient with all of it. Never makes me feel broken or damaged. Just reminds me that healing isn't linear and that I've survived something most people couldn't have survived. "You're the strongest person I know," he told me last week. "What you went through would have destroyed most people, but you turned it into something meaningful. You're saving lives every day because of what happened to you. That's incredible." I don't always feel strong. Some days I still feel like that sick, weak woman in bed, unable to move while my husband plotted my death. Some days I look in the mirror and see a person I don't recognize, someone who is capable of poisoning another human being, even in self-defense. But other days I feel like a warrior, like someone who stared death in the face and won, someone who took the worst thing that ever happened to her and turned it into something that helps other people. The foundation has helped over 300 women in the past 2 years. 300 women who might have died if they hadn't found us, if they hadn't had access to the resources and support that I wish I'd had. We've expanded to 4 states now: Illinois, Wisconsin, Indiana, Michigan. We have plans to go national in the next 2 years, plans to train medical professionals across the country on recognizing covert medical abuse. Derek's evil created something good. That's the only way I can make sense of what happened to me. Last month, I got a letter from the parole board. Derek is eligible for a parole hearing in 23 years. They wanted to know if I wanted to submit a victim impact statement when that time came. I said yes. 23 years from now, when I'm 52 years old and Derek is 61, I'll stand in front of that parole board and tell them exactly what he did to me. I'll make sure they understand that he's not rehabilitated, that he's not sorry, that he's just a manipulative sociopath who got caught. I'll make sure he serves every single day of his sentence. But that's a long time from now. For now, I'm focused on living, really living, not just surviving, but thriving. I traveled to Europe last summer, something I'd always wanted to do but never got around to. Spent 3 weeks in Italy eating amazing food and drinking wine and feeling alive. I took up painting. Something about creating beauty with my hands helps heal the part of me that was destroyed by Derek's betrayal. I'm not very good at it, but I don't care. It makes me happy. I bought a dog, a golden retriever named Justice. He sleeps in my bed and greets me every morning with enthusiasm that's impossible to fake. He loves me unconditionally, and that helps me remember that not all relationships are transactional, that some love is real. I reconnected with old friends I'd lost touch with during my marriage. Women I'd pulled away from because Derek didn't like them or because I was too sick to maintain relationships. They welcome me back with open arms and no judgment. They remind me that I'm more than what happened to me, and every morning I wake up in my house, in my bed, alive. I make my own coffee, I play with my dog, I check emails from the foundation, I text James good morning, I live my life. Derek thought he could erase me, thought he could poison me slowly and watch me fade away, then step into a new life with his mistress without consequences. He thought he was smarter than me, thought I'd never figure it out. He was wrong about all of it. I'm still here, still breathing, still fighting, still winning. And he's in a cell, exactly where he belongs. That's my story. That's how my husband tried to kill me with poison coffee and how I turned his plan against him. It's not a pretty story. It's not a fairy tale with a simple, happy ending. It's messy and complicated and morally gray. But it's the truth. And the truth is that sometimes you have to become what you hate in order to survive. Sometimes you have to fight fire with fire, or in my case, poison with poison. I didn't want to be someone who could do what I did, but Derek made me that person, and I'd do it again in a heartbeat if it meant saving my own life. If you've stayed with me through this whole story, thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for not judging. Thank you for understanding that survival sometimes requires desperate measures. If you or someone you know is being abused, please reach out for help. Call the National Domestic Violence Hotline. Contact the Lauren Mitchell Foundation. Talk to someone you trust. Don't wait until it's too late. I almost waited too long. If I hadn't woken up that morning and heard Derek talking to Ashley, if I hadn't figured out what he was doing, I'd be dead right now. He would have succeeded. Trust your instincts, pay attention to red flags, and never ever let someone else make your coffee without watching them do it. I'm Lauren Mitchell. I'm 29 years old. I survived my husband's attempt to murder me, and I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure other women survive too. That's my purpose now. That's my mission. Derek tried to end my life, but instead he gave it new meaning, and that's the best revenge of all. Thank you for listening to my story. Stay safe, stay aware, and remember, you're stronger than you think you are. If I can survive this, you can survive whatever you're going through. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have coffee to make. My coffee. Safe coffee. Coffee that won't kill me, and I have a life to live. A beautiful, meaningful, poison-free life. Derek can rot in prison. I'm done giving him any more of my time. The end. Thank you for watching. Stay safe, stay smart, and always, always make your own coffee. I'll see you in the next video.